Hello and welcome back to FloRugby. This is Rugby Today. Another massive weekend of international rugby is just around the corner, and we've got some big storylines across the board. From Ireland's search for rhythm against Japan to Scotland's historic shot at the All Blacks. Of course, England's going to look to continue their evolution against Fiji, and a colossal showdown in Paris between France and the reigning world champion South Africa. We'll also touch on Italy's clash with Australia, the upcoming Wales vs Argentina battle, and a fascinating matchup for USA rugby fans as they take on Georgia. So let's get right into it. Ireland return home to the Aviva Stadium this weekend, looking to reset their November campaign after what was a bruising defeat to the All Blacks at Soldier Field in Chicago. Andy Farrell has rung the changes for the clash, 9 in total, as he attempts to thread the needle between getting his frontline players back up to speed and crucially injecting some much needed new blood into a side that has looked a bit stale over the past 12 months. Caelan Doris leads the team again, this time from the start, and his return to full match fitness will be absolutely crucial against the Wallabies and Springboks. Farrell's selection tells us a lot about where his head is at. There's a balance between rehabilitation of frontline players and experimentation. Ronan Kelleher, Andrew Porter and Thomas Clarkson make up a front row that needs a serious response after what was by any measure a poor return at scrum time in Chicago, and of course across the set piece as a whole. The inclusion of the young Clarkson, a technician by trade, suggests Farrell's wants sharper detail at the scrum and line-out time, and not just brute force, albeit Clarkson brings plenty of that too. The big question this week is whether Ireland can rediscover their rhythm. Farrell's sides at their best are built on relentless phase play, patient attack patterns and high-speed recycling. But the Chicago test raised plenty of questions about whether this group, without Johnny Sexton, can still operate with that precision when under pressure. Have they reached a point where they need to readjust? Perhaps embrace a more kick-heavy style, relying on contestable aerial pressure and territory to grind teams down, as many of the other top-tier teams in the world do. They should lean into those Gaelic football skills, of course. It's one of the fascinating tactical undercurrents this weekend because this backline of Craig Casey, Jack Crowley, Robbie Henshaw, Tom Farrell, Jamie Osborne, Jimmy O'Brien and Jacob Stockdale doesn't necessarily scream kick and chase. There's flair, creativity and power there, yet the risk of running into a Japanese line speed too often without shape or depth is also there. Tom Farrell's inclusion at outside centre is a particularly intriguing selection. He's been one of the 4 midfielders in the URC for 2 seasons since joining Munster, a player who brings direct carrying threat, but also a silky offloading game that suits Ireland's old school phase-based attack, something that they've missed recently. This is a redemption story of sorts for Farrell. He's been knocking on the door for years and now finally gets his chance at 32 years old. His combination with Robbie Henshaw could be a key pivot point in this match. Henshaw, he brings plenty of power and it's going to work really nicely alongside Farrell's footwork, and it could reignite some of Ireland's front foot punch in the midfield, something that's been slipping, albeit Stuart McCluskey was incredible last week. Jacob Stockdale, meanwhile, is one of the players under the microscope. Once one of the most dangerous finishers in world rugby, his confidence and form have fluctuated wildly, however, since 2018. With James Lowe out of form and Ireland's back three still unsettled, this is Stockdale's chance to make a statement. Similarly, his Ulster teammate Nick Timoney's inclusion adds mobility to a back row that was a step slow in Chicago from minutes 60 to 80. He'll need a standout performance if he wants to apply pressure to the ever consistent Josh van der Flier. Van der Flier has been a little bit off the mark, so now's the time for Timoney to put the pressure on. But the biggest issue for Ireland this weekend, of course, comes at line-out time, and against Japan, with Warner Dearns in particular, this is a really good hit out for them ahead of their clashes with the Wallabies and the Springboks. The Japanese system thrives on quick throws, fast movement and counter-punching from broken structure. If Ireland's line-out malfunctions once again, Japan will happily run them ragged at the Aviva Stadium. Japan, for their part, arrived battered from last week's blowout defeat to the Springboks. They were out-muscled in the contest from minute 0, mauled off the park and dominated physically all the way through. But the Japanese side have always been much better suited to a fast attacking game. And that is somewhat where they'll have to look at this week. The key question is whether they can physically live with this Irish pack. The likes of Tyg Byrne, James Ryan, Andrew Porter and Caelan Doris will test their durability across 80 minutes in a similar way to the Springboks. In terms of a prediction, we're going to go with Ireland by about 30 to 40 points here if they can get their execution. But the real test will be whether the fundamentals, the line out, the speed of ball and the breakdown clarity shows tangible improvement. If it gets back to even being close to their 2023 levels, they'll blow Japan away. Now let's pivot to Edinburgh, where Scotland are preparing for their very own shot at history. No Scottish side has ever beaten the All Blacks, but Gregor Townsend's men believe they could be the team to do it. He has made the bombshell selection to drop Duhan van der Merwe, which is a massive call, and it signals a tactical intent. Van der Merwe's power is unmatched, but his aerial game has long been a weak point, and it's something that Townsend had clearly expects the All Blacks to challenge him with high balls and quick, clever chip kicks. Kyle Staines' inclusion adds much better balance to the backline in defence and in the air. The Scotland backline as a whole is loaded with creativity. Finn Russell, Sione Tuipulotu, Darcy Graham and Blair Kinghorn, and this group will back themselves to strike from anywhere. The real battle though is up front, as it always is. Can Scotland live with New Zealand's power game? The All Blacks bench destroyed Ireland last week in the 60th to the 80th minute. Wallace Satiti and Tamaita Williams turned the contest completely when they came on in Chicago. This week, Scott Robertson has doubled down on that power approach. Satiti gets the start, bringing that blend of explosiveness and physicality that New Zealand at times missed in that opening hour against Ireland. Josh Lord comes in for the injured Scott Barrett, while Lester Faenga Anuku gets a first start in the midfield on this tour after impressing out wide in Chicago. Artie Sevilla captains the side, and he'll demand a response from a group that knows they were second best for much of the first 60 minutes last week against Ireland. Again, they won the important minutes from 60 to 80. For Scotland, the 6-2 bench split is revealing. Townsend expects a bruising battle. The hope will be that the Scottish forward on the bench can inject tempo in the second half. But make no mistake, this is about containment for Scotland early on and causing chaos late. They'll want to stay within striking distance for about 65 minutes, and then they can let Finn Russell open things up and pull strings when fatigue sets into defensive lines. In terms of a prediction, we're still going to go with the All Blacks by about 10 points, but we do see Scotland making them work for it. Now, down to Twickenham, where England face Fiji, and the focus is firmly on continuity and control. Steve Borthwick has changed 7 starters, but the core of his game remains the same for this one. Aerial dominance, structured kicking, and the relentless breakdown pressure that they brought against the Wallabies. The back three is completely reshuffled due to injuries, with Marcus Smith at fullback, Tommy Freeman on the wing, and Emmanuel Feo-Abosa being the one player to retain his position on the other wing. Freddie Stewart and Tom Roebuck's injuries have forced creativity, but England's backfield plan won't necessarily change all that much. Expect Smith and Freeman to join the kicking exchanges, with the back row of Ben Earl and Guy Pepper especially flooding the contest zone to either secure possession from high balls or disrupt Fiji with a quick breakdown on the tapbacks. This is an England team that's finally starting to look cohesive. Finn Smith gets a very well-deserved start at fly half, while Fraser Dingwall and Ollie Lawrence form a direct and physical midfield partnership. The pack is led by Ellis Genge, who captains the side, and it looks mean. Luke Cowan-Dickey and Joe Hayes give bite at set piece time, and Guy Pepper's inclusion at 6 adds a raw edge to the pack. The POM squad, as they're being called, featuring Maro Itoje, Tom Curry, Jamie George and Henry Pollock, will look to repeat the trick that buried Australia late last week. Fiji, for their part, are desperate to tidy up their set piece and get back to the levels of 2023. The talent is always there. There's immense power, brilliant skill and creativity, but the structure has been chaotic in recent times. If they can get their scrum and defensive line organised, they have more than enough firepower to hurt England out wide. But if not, it could be another long day for Fiji. If England click, we're going to say they're going to win by about 30 points in this one. Now to Italy, where the Azzurri face Australia in Udine. This one might be a lot closer than many people think. Italy are missing captain Michele Lamaro, but they have firepower across the park. Louis Lina, the son of Wallabies legend Michael and current fly half Tom, brother to Tom, makes his start on the wing after a red-hot start for Benetton, and he partners Monty Iwoni and Ange Capuazzo in a lethal-looking Italian back three. The midfield of Juan Ignacio Brex and Tommaso Menincello gives Italy plenty of punch and defensive organisation, while Ross Vincent and Lorenzo Canini add a lot of athleticism to the pack. This is a very well coached Italian team under Gonzalo Quisada, and they'll fancy their chances of another upset after that historic 2022 win over the Wallabies. Australia, though, have changes of their own, many of which are in force. Carter Gordon returns to fly half after a stint in rugby league, which adds plenty of intrigue. His creativity and attacking variety could be key in this one. The return of Matt Faisler at hooker and Tom Hooper on the flank adds plenty of energy and, crucially, power, but there are concerns about fatigue with this side. The Wallabies look drained at Twickenham, and Joe Schmidt has admitted as much in the press this week. This could be a trap game for Australia if they can't control the tempo nice and early. Our prediction is we're still going to back the Wallabies by 4 points, but Italy will make them earn every inch, and we could see it going either way. Now, finally, to the Stade de France, where rugby royalty meets once again. France versus South Africa, a World Cup rematch, a 100th test cap for a man who has redefined the sport over the past 5 to 10 years in Sia Khaleesi. It just doesn't really get much bigger than this on a Saturday evening. France are led by Gaël Foucault, with Nolan Legarrec filling Antoine Dupont's massive boots at scrum half, with the Toulouse captain still out injured. There's talent everywhere for France. Romain Ntamack, Damien Penaud, Thomas Ramos, Gaël Foucault, but they're light up front with Cyril Bay, Pierre Tomavaka and Winnie Antonio all out. Michael Goulard starts at number 8 in place of Gregor Aldred, who's been left out after a controversial few weeks. This is still a very dangerous French side, especially in front of a Parisian crowd desperate for revenge after the 2023 World Cup quarterfinal heartbreak at the same venue. For the Springboks, it's a night of celebration and steel. Khaleesi joins an elite group of Boks Centurions, while the team itself looks balanced and brutal. Malcolm Marks returns at hooker. Ia Benetsabeth and Lua Diaga reunite in the second row, and the incredible Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu continues at fly half after impressive showing against Japan at just a red-hot start to his season. Erasmus has made clear he wants fight and he expects France to bring one. This will be very physical, emotional and probably chaotic at times. Both teams will trade blows up front, but South Africa's cohesion and experience might just carry the day for them in this one. Our prediction is going to be South Africa by 4 points in what we believe will be the test match of the year. Now to Cardiff on Sunday, where Wales host Argentina, and while the teams aren't out yet, the themes are obvious. Wales must front up physically in this one. Argentina will test them at scrum time, the breakdown and in the carry. If Wales can stay in that fight and match the Pumas' physical edge, they have the creativity in this side to win it. If not, it could be a long afternoon, as has been the case in recent years. We'll have the full preview and prediction once the lineups are confirmed tomorrow. But we are not against Wales bringing an upset there. And finally, in Tbilisi, Georgia hosts the United States in a fascinating clash between two developing rugby nations on two very different timelines. USA head coach Scott Lawrence has rotated heavily from the team that took a heavy defeat in Scotland as part of his long-term plan to build depth in USA Rugby. Jason Dam captains the side once again, and there are some notable inclusions, in particular the powerful forwards of Tonga Kofi and Nafi Mahavu, who bring serious physicality to this contest in a really exciting development for the US. Luke Carty's inclusion at fly half should strengthen the kicking game for the Eagles, something that the US probably lacked a little bit against Scotland in the opening sort of 50 minutes, But this is a tall order. Georgia's pack, when it clicks, is one of the most formidable in world rugby outside of the top nations, and in fact including a lot of the top nations. They haven't released their lineup at the time of this recording, but expect the usual blend of brute force and technical precision with a bit of magic out wide. For the USA, this is an opportunity to measure themselves against one of the best scrummaging and mauling teams in the sport. For Georgia, it's a chance to reassert their place as the kings of the second tier of teams in world rugby after what's been a mixed run of form recently. Our prediction is Georgia by about 12 to 15 points. So that's your full weekend of Test rugby. Ireland are searching for rhythm. Scotland are chasing history. England are sharpening their machine. Italy and Australia are on upset alert. Who's going to come out on top there? South Africa and France are ready for war in Paris, and plenty of intrigue is still to come in Cardiff and Tbilisi for those looking for some extra fixtures. November rugby is delivering already, as it always does, and this weekend could be one of the most revealing yet. What match are you most looking forward to? And let us know all of your predictions below. We'd love to hear them and get a gauge on what people are thinking about teams around the world today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course leave those comments. Thanks for watching the video.